Here's a signal that should have every small business owner's attention. Employee retention has become the single biggest talent concern for 93% of organizations heading into 2026. And if you're running a small operation, you're probably thinking you can't compete. The big companies have the signing bonuses, the fancy benefits packages, the stock options. But here's what the data actually shows. Money isn't why most people leave. And the strategies that really work, they play directly to your strengths as a small business. Today we're breaking down the low-cost and no-cost retention tactics that are actually moving the needle, backed by fresh 2026 research, not recycled advice from a decade ago. We're talking flexibility, recognition, career development, and the structural advantages that small businesses have, but almost never leverage intentionally. Because here's the thing. You don't need a bigger budget. You need a better strategy. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about why retention matters so much at the small business scale. Losing an employee isn't just inconvenient, it's expensive in ways that aren't always obvious. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, replacing an employee costs 6 to 9 months of their salary. For a $40,000 a year employee, that's $20,000 to $30,000. That number includes recruiting costs, training time, lost productivity while the new person ramps up, and the institutional knowledge that walks out the door with your departing employee. And the retention problem is getting worse, not better. 56% of organizations report growing concerns around employee retention compared to last year. At the enterprise level, they can absorb these losses. They have recruiting departments. They have training programs. They have redundancy built into their operations. At the small business level, losing your best salesperson or your only operations manager can genuinely threaten the business. There's no backup, there's no bench. So retention isn't a nice-to-have HR initiative. It's a core business survival strategy. The question is, what actually works? Here's where small businesses usually go wrong. They assume they need to match big company salaries and benefits to keep people. But research tells a completely different story. According to ADP's 2026 Employee Experience Research, retention now lives at the intersection of flexibility, well-being, meaningful work, learning, career growth, and trust in leadership. Notice what's not at the top of that list? Pure compensation. Salary matters, absolutely. It's table stakes. But once you're competitive, throwing more money at retention has diminishing returns. 31% of employees specifically look for another job because they want a more flexible work schedule. Not more money, flexibility. And this is where small businesses actually have an advantage. You can offer flexibility that would require 6 months of corporate policy review at a big company. Let's get specific. Here are flexible schedule options you can implement this week with essentially zero cost. Flex start times. Instead of everyone arriving at 9, give employees a window, say 7 to 10, to start their day. They work the same hours but choose when. Compressed work weeks. Some roles can do 4 10-hour days instead of 5 8s. Same productivity, but employees get a 3-day weekend every week. Work from home Fridays. For roles where it's possible, remote Fridays reduce commute stress and give employees a taste of flexibility without going fully remote. These cost you nothing except a willingness to trust your employees. And that trust? It compounds. Ravio's research found that when employees feel trusted, engagement and loyalty increase, without expensive programs. Now let's talk about recognition. This is probably the most underutilized retention tool in small business, and it's completely free. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce puts it simply, saying thank you is always free and will likely have a bigger impact than you might imagine. But here's the nuance. Recognition needs to be specific, timely, and genuine. Generic thank yous at the annual holiday party don't move the needle. Here's a system that works. Weekly shout-outs in team meetings. Take 2 minutes at the start of every team meeting to recognize 1 or 2 specific contributions from the past week. The key word is specific. Not great job everyone but Sarah. The way you handled that difficult customer call on Tuesday saved the account. That was exactly what we needed. This matters because one of the biggest retention advantages small businesses have is visibility. In a 10-person company, everyone can see how their work contributes to the whole. At a 10,000-person company, you might never know if your work mattered. At your company, you can make sure every employee knows exactly how they're moving the business forward. Ravio's analysis found that SMBs are uniquely positioned to offer meaningful autonomy, clearer visibility into business impact, and more direct access to decision makers. These are retention superpowers. The question is whether you're leveraging these advantages intentionally or just hoping employees notice. Intentional communication about impact is a retention strategy in itself. Now let's address a painful reality. 41% of employers say new recruits, sometimes or often, resign within the first 12 weeks. That's the onboarding danger zone. This tells us that retention doesn't start after someone's been there a year. It starts on day one. Actually, it starts before day one. Practical step: create a structured first-week experience. Not just here's your desk, figure it out. A real plan with clear daily activities, introductions, and check-ins. Day 1. Workspace ready, all logins working, lunch with the team. Day 2. Shadow a colleague. Day 3. First small assignment with clear success criteria. Week 1. 30-minute check-in with the owner. This signals that you're organized, you value their time, and you're investing in their success. Big companies struggle to deliver personalized onboarding. You can nail it. Now let's talk about career development. This is where small businesses often assume they can't compete. We don't have a career ladder, they say. We only have 10 positions. But career development isn't just about promotions. It's about skill growth, expanding responsibilities, and feeling like you're getting better at your craft. Here's a framework. 1 professional development opportunity per quarter for each employee. That's 4 per year. Mix of options based on budget and role. Low-cost options. Online courses through LinkedIn Learning or Coursera run $50 to $200. Industry webinars are often free. Industry conferences can be 1 to 2 days, $500 total. No-cost options. Mentor matching within your industry network. Cross-training between departments. Stretch assignments on projects outside their normal role. Book clubs discussing business books. American Express research highlights that these development investments pay off in retention. Employees who see a path to growth stay longer, even at smaller companies. The key is making development visible and structured. Don't just say, "We support your growth." Have a quarterly conversation about it. Track it. Budget for it, even if that budget is small. Here's another retention strategy that costs almost nothing: volunteer time off, or VTO. Even 8 hours per year gives employees a sense of mission alignment. This works because people want to feel good about where they work. They want to tell their friends and family that their company does good things in the community. Implementation is simple. Announce a policy. Every employee gets 1 paid day per year to volunteer with an organization of their choice. Total cost: 1 day of productivity per person. Bonus approach: organize a company-wide volunteer day once a year. It doubles as team building and generates content for your social media. Retention plus marketing. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful and underused retention tools: the stay interview. Most businesses only ask employees about their experience when they're leaving. A stay interview flips the script. You sit down with current employees, your best performers especially, and ask directly, what keeps you here? What might make you leave? Other key questions: what do you love most about your job? What would you change if you could? What can I do to support you better? This accomplishes 2 things. First, you get actionable intelligence about what's working and what isn't. Second, the employee feels valued because you asked before there was a problem. Many businesses find that what employees want is surprisingly doable. Maybe it's a slightly different schedule. Maybe it's more variety in assignments. Often it's just being heard. At a big company, an employee might not get face time with anyone who can actually change things. At your company, you have the authority to act on what you hear. Let's pull this together with some perspective. The retention trends research tells us that flexibility, learning, recognition, culture, and well-being are now the core pillars of retention. Notice that only one of those, well-being, through health benefits, typically requires significant spending. The other 4 are mostly about intention, communication, and culture. And here's the structural advantage you need to internalize. Small businesses can move faster on all of these. No committee approvals. No 6-month policy review cycles. Ravio's research makes this explicit. When employees feel seen, trusted, and able to influence outcomes, engagement and loyalty often increase, usually without expensive programs. The key phrase there is able to influence outcomes. At a small company, employees can genuinely shape the business. At a big company, they're often just executing someone else's decisions. Your job as a small business leader is to make this advantage explicit. Tell employees when their idea shaped a decision. Show them how their work moved the numbers. Let's address something honestly. None of this works if your compensation is genuinely below market. Flexibility and recognition can't compensate for paying 30% under market rate. So the first step is to make sure your base compensation is at least competitive. Research salary benchmarks for your roles in your geography. Get within range. Once you're competitive on pay, that's when these other strategies become force multipliers. You're not substituting culture for fair wages. You're adding culture to fair wages. Here's your action plan. This week, pick one flexible schedule option to offer. Write it down. Communicate it to your team. See who takes you up on it. This month, implement weekly recognition in team meetings. Start with your next meeting. Call out one specific contribution. Make it a habit. This quarter, conduct stay interviews with your top 3 performers. Schedule 30 minutes each. Ask the questions we covered. Act on at least one thing you learn. This year, build a professional development budget. Even $200 per employee per year signals investment in their growth. Track it. Follow through. Remember, replacing an employee costs 6 to 9 months of salary. A $200 training investment that keeps someone an extra year pays for itself many times over. One quick note before we wrap. This content is for educational purposes and not financial advice. Every business situation is different. Consult with an HR professional if you need specific guidance. The signal here is clear. Retention in 2026 isn't about outspending the competition. It's about outcarrying them. And that's a game small businesses can absolutely win. You have advantages the big companies can't replicate. Access, visibility, agility, and the ability to treat people like individuals rather than headcount. Use them intentionally. Your retention numbers and your bottom line will thank you. That's your signal for this week. If you found this valuable, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Until next time, keep building.